In honor of this milestone anniversary, Rivermark Community Credit Union would like to welcome Anita Hill as tonight's keynote speaker, a courageous advocate and a historic figure. Please join me in welcoming Anita Hill to the stage.
The question that I always get asked is, would I do it again? And the answer is yes, I would do it again.
Anita Hill.
Where knows about Anita Hill?
In a week of great drama, riveting testimony, and raw political battling in the Capitol Hill fight over the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court nomination, Professor Anita Hill has candidly and explicitly told her story of being sexually harassed by Thomas while holding down 2 government jobs.
Here she was, a lone, young black woman.
On several occasions, Thomas told me graphically of his own sexual prowess. He said that if I ever told anyone of his behavior, that it would ruin his career.
This is an important issue, and the dialogue should not stop here. Take equality seriously, for real. I'm talking about violence that is directed at people largely because of their gender. But I'm also talking about gender violence against men. Not only is it bigger than me, but all of these problems are connected. And if we don't deal with all of them, we're not going to make the world safe for any of us.
Hi.
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 Thanks, everyone. Now I know why people like to be in Portland. Look at
You remember when I told you it's now? Okay. Be very cool. Okay. Hi. All right, Anita. She told me I could call her Anita, so don't look at me like that. Anita, what would you like to share to ground us in this space?
Wow. You know, there's so much to say. I don't know if you want me to talk about me.
I think you, yeah. Yeah, I think probably you,
let
yeah.
me just say, you know, people talk about the hearings and my testimony and the things that have happened. But, you know, I have to tell people that the testimony, the experience of harassment, and all of the effects that went on after the testimony really was something that happened to me. It is not me. And I like to think of the different things and roles that I play. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a teacher. I'm an aunt. All of those things, and ultimately, I'm also a survivor, and that's why this work is important to me. But I also know that it's important to you, because you wouldn't be here tonight, and you wouldn't be so. If I say this in a most positive way, giddy. Because I was listening to the energy that was being displayed here, and I just want you to know that that is the kind of energy that keeps me going, that keeps me understanding that this work is important and that people care about it, and that we deserve more as a society than we have right now, and we're going to fight for it until the very, very end.
Just a real quick sound check. Can folks hear in the back? Yeah, you're good? Okay, great.
Okay, great.
Do you think I'm going to get up and move the flowers? Do you want to move the flowers? Go for it. You can move the flowers.
Yep.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. We just can't see you.
There you are. There's more of you, yes.
Okay. Any other complaints from the audience? No? Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for doing that. All right. So you have obviously been a powerful voice for survivors of gender-based violence for decades. So what initially compelled you to speak out, and how did you find the strength to persist in the face of backlash?
You know, when I initially came forward to testify at the Thomas hearings, I wasn't really thinking that this is going to be a new day for sexual harassment. People are going to understand it. My motivation really was the court. I had been teaching in law school and listening to the hearings before the second round happened, in which I appeared. And I was, telling my students, you're going to be lawyers, you need to watch these hearings, you need to understand what's going on. But in my heart, what I knew was, I am the youngest of 13 children. Then my parents raised those children, most of them in Jim Crow America. And then there was something like the Brown versus the Board of Education case in 1954, 2 years before I was born. But that case was so significant for a Black community, and that it was so meaningful, really, to me, for this in the entire country, because it was a change. It was more than a symbol. It was actually a practical change that could be put in place to bring us together for truly being a nation that was believed in equality. And so I was thinking about the integrity of the court, because I knew that Clarence Thomas was an individual who not only wasn't fit to be announcing in the law and shaping the law, but that he was a person that was capable of breaking the law that he was supposed to be enforcing. And that was my motivation. It was not, I would not be where I am today. I think I would, at least, had I not had that focus. I think if I had gone forward to talk about sexual harassment just as a problem, I don't know that anyone would have listened to me. Because it was such an obscure idea for people to wrap their hand. I mean, there were people who absolutely did not even know what sexual harassment was. They didn't know when it happened, how it happened, what you were supposed to do about it when it happened. But yet you had senators like DeConcini saying, well, when you're sexually harassed, you should get mad, and you should get mad and you should go and complain about it. And I thought, here's somebody who clearly has never been harassed. And so what we had was really a Senate committee who just knew nothing about the lives of working women in particular. And so when I came forward, it started out as being the court, but then it really, as I was making that testimony, I realized it was about more than the court. It was about the lives of individuals. It was about the way that women were being treated despite the laws. Despite the laws. It was as though we were just sort of thumbing our noses at these laws. And having that voice and being that voice that was able to withstand all of the pressure, but also be able to know that somebody was hearing me. I thought I was talking to the Senate Judiciary Committee, but what I realized ultimately was that I was talking, the audience was much bigger, that because there were so many people who had experienced this in some form or another. And as well, ultimately, I came to understand that the people who resonated, with whom this testimony resonated, were a broad spectrum of folks. I mean, people who were incest survivors, people who were rape survivors, people who were partner survivors, all of those factors really came together. It wasn't just sexual harassment, that was the topic of the day. But in fact, the behavior was much bigger. What we were trying to address, it was much bigger than any one individual or any one problem. And so that's how I came to understand and why I'm here today. Because I actually could have just walked away after testifying and let that be it. But I knew there was a bigger problem, and I just felt really grateful to be able to continue to press to get change and have it be change that will last and sustain us for another generation. We cannot pass this on to another generation.
I think I can speak for everyone in this room when we say thank you for doing that and not letting it go.
And thank you. You know, and the work that, 50 years ago, and you can imagine it's not been that long since I testified, but imagine that 50 years ago, the idea of an organization like Bradley Engel to come and really pay attention to these issues and understand and work to move forward. It's just amazing. It really is. And that now you still have the energy, you still have the fire to actually keep doing this after 50 years. And one of the things I have to say is that I was very impressed earlier when I started meeting some of the people who were here, that you really have brought in a new generation of advocates for this work. And that's something that many organizations don't quite do in the way that you have fully embraced it. And that's, I think, what is going to make this so vibrant and important for years, another 50 years to come. We won't be around, folks, I know that. But the things that what you are doing will continue to resonate.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Something that I think we really were excited about when we were kind of like trying to put these questions together, right, is that you've been known to really speak out on the importance of intersectionality. And I think that a lot of folks, especially allies, right, who don't belong to some of those identities, are really kind of hungry, for how they can show up, how they can support folks, that are queer and trans, that are immigrants, that are folks that are disabled. And so I guess from your perspective, how do folks do that with, right, the best intention and the best support and the best love? How do they show up for other people that aren't like them?
Well, they have to show up with an open mind. That is the beginning, to understand that everyone's experience is not like your experience. We come in different backgrounds and different cultures. One of the things that I've really been proud of in terms of my work is that we, at Brandeis, where I teach, we put together a whole series of seminars on gender-based violence. And we anchored that seminar, or all of them, in the topics of colonialism and slavery. And because what I realized is that many of the ideas that people have about gender-based violence started with colonialism and slavery in this country. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to not truly understand the experience of Native populations, tribal populations, the indigenous folks here, the problems of racism with regard to Black people and Black women, I mean, I heard a reference to the rate of violence against Black women, and that those figures really are just the legacy of slavery. The figures of 84% of Native and indigenous women will experience sexual assault, and typically that sexual assault is happening happening because of non-Native men assaulting Native women. And so if you don't understand that, you're not going to understand all of the pressures that are on those groups. And that happens with disabilities too. The numbers, the figures, 50 or 40-something% of people with disabilities, women with disabilities, will experience some form of sexual assault. A significant percentage will experience intimate partner violence. I mean, so if you, again, and as I said in the video, if you're not taking care of all of us, none of us is going to be able to survive this problem. And so, and you have to take people from where they are and where they came from and understand that in terms of the way you approach them to work and make sure that they are going to be safe in this society. So it's complicated. And there's the other side of this, and this is the hard part, because there are so many legacy grievances between different populations. It makes the work hard because there's so much resentment that has been held over. But if we can come together to understand that this is a problem, a shared problem, a problem that we have in common, I think then we can start to build on those shared interests, and maybe even then get beyond some of the issues of racism, xenophobia, disability phobia, all of those things that are holding us back from being truly, truly free from gender violence.
I think something that, a tagline, right, in our work is folks are always like, you need to believe survivors, right? We believe survivors. And I think a lot of folks get stuck on the words, and we would love to know from your perspective, what does it truly mean to believe survivors in practice, not just in words?
Well, first of all, we got to believe all the lies that we've been told about the problem. All the lies about, they wanted it. They were trying to use the lie for that they have been abused. All of those things that that women are told, the gaslighting that happens when you come forward with, I say it's all of the shaming and blaming that happens, where you get shamed for example, oh, you can't come forward because you will bring shame to your community. All of those things are holding us back. And I sometimes say to people, okay, think of a scenario where a friend to you, a woman, someone who is not male, comes to you and they say, oh, I have experienced this kind of violence or abuse. Now, in that situation, let's say that there's a woman and a man. So how many times do you think the conversation then is going to be, well, what was he wearing? Or, was he drinking? Or why was he out at 12 o'clock at night? Or did he really think all you were going to do was watch television? And all of those things that you ask women are hands off for men. You don't. So what it says to me really is that there is a presumption that women are at fault. Because otherwise they would ask the men those questions. But those are not the questions that they get. And so we have got to let go in our minds of those presumptions if we are going to be effectively, truly believing survivors. But we have to get beyond it. But if you even, I'm smiling here because I'm going to try to figure out how to say this. We are increasingly living in a world where lies become the truth. And that has happened in the realm of gender-based violence. The lies have become over and over again the truth, the only truth that we want to deal with. And I hope that we learn from this period of time that we're in now, that we can no longer allow that to be the case. That when we know there is a lie, we can't just simply try to figure out how we make it true. We need to address that as part of the problem, not the solution.
Yeah, thank you. We better learn something from this time, I'll say that. So you talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think it's time we would love to hear some advice from you. So given the unique challenges that women continue to navigate, because things aren't that different, particularly those at the intersection of various identities, what is one piece of advice you would want to offer the women in the room?
If you're asking me if they want to come forward, how would I advise them? Unlike a lot of people, I hear too often, oh, well, if women would just come forward, everything would be okay. And we know that's not true because we know what happens when people, and not just women, but people of every gender who have been abused, they come forward. Very often, they are treated in the worst way, even more so. And they walk into a system really that was not meant for them. And I am still not at the point where I say to people, well, you just have to come forward. Because I know the harm that can come to people when they come forward. And we're not past that point. So what I do say to people is that, because there are people who really just, they want to be heard and they want their problem that they have experienced to be aired, and I want to help them do it. First thing I say is to find out who your support is. Find somebody who is going to support you, who you can talk to, who is going to believe you and is going to help you get through this. The second thing I would say is that mostly in any of this coming forward involves systems and institutions. And the first thing you've got to know is, how do those systems work? Who is in charge of it? What happens when you do come forward? What can you expect to happen? So you can't just come forward without having some understanding of how you want the story to end. And in order to get that, you have to know how things work. So it's a complicated step-by-step process. I don't want to send people into, like I said, a system that wasn't meant for them to come into, that was meant to turn against them, as a matter of fact. I want people to come forward knowing what the possibilities are, the good and the bad, and who can find not only the knowledge to navigate it, but also the friends and families and allies that will help them when they do hit a situation where they're being rejected or lied to or gaslighted or ignored. And so it's all, to me, much of the work is about empowering people to get to that point, to giving people the information and the resources that they need to get to that point. And so in my work with the Hollywood Commission, that's where we are right now. We know that we cannot change the system in every organization, because organizations are there to protect themselves very often. And so what we do is that we empower the people who can come forward, and we demand that those people who are would-be bystanders, we demand that they become supporters of their colleagues. And that's actually happening in our work. That people are starting to say, look, they're fed up with this bad behavior that's happening in the workplace, that they're ashamed of even talking about the workplace because they know this stuff is happening. So what happens is that they were at a standstill. But when they come together, the allies and their supporters and co-workers come together, they can be very, very effective. And that takes a lot of work. But having the resources, whether it's just information about how the problem is solved, how it's addressed, having the resources really and the patience to deal with the bureaucracy, those are things that you can do to support individuals who want to come forward, so that they're not just coming forward to be hit over the head with something, that's going to only make matters worse. And that's hard work. At the same time, we do want climates and cultures within these workplaces to change. And I mean, when I say that, I'm just talking about workplace harassment now. But the thing that we also need to change are the criminal justice system. And that is slowly happening. But then all of a sudden you get Harvey Weinstein is off the hook, or Bill Cosby's off the hook. And so it's like one step forward, 2 steps back. But those are things that we have to learn how to weather. And if you really want change, if you you want to take another step, one of the things that we have to do is demand that our leaders take these cases seriously for the epidemic that it is in this country. How can any of us look at the rate of abuse that exists, for trans people in this country whose lives are being lost because of who they are? Simple, who they are. How can we expect people to be able to deal with this as sort of in such cavalier ways if we, just because our government and the legal system does not honor who they are. And so we've got to demand more. Now, and again, I'll say this, and I don't know how effective I was, but when I wrote Believing, the very last chapter was for Joseph Biden to put in place a government initiative that was addressed at these very issues that you're working on right now, and make this part of what we want our nation to be and to do, and to put it at the highest level, the presidential level, that this is a problem that is affecting our entire society. It's not just the health and well-being, it is the economic well-being, it's the social well-being and cultural well-being of our country that's being attacked. And so I asked for that. And there was, for a while, this effort to have the first national gender-based violence initiative in the federal government. Now, you know what happens next. And so this can't just be the prerogative of one individual. To get to that level nationally, there has to be consensus around us. It's not going to happen now, okay? We know that. But that doesn't mean that we should give up on it happening. If I had given up on but we also know that it's not going to happen unless we really get behind it and push for change at every government level, whether it's the local government criminal justice system, whether it's the federal, whether it's the state. This is where we need to have our voices in pushing for change. And ultimately, we're going to get there, and I don't know that it'll happen in my lifetime again, but if we keep passing the torch to our young people and making them leaders, I look out, because I look out at young people every day because I teach with them. I just think that they're going to be able to take this up and take this on in a way that we will ultimately see that and be able to say that our government is doing everything it can to end the problems of violence against people who are vulnerable and who are being violated for nothing other than who they are.
Thank you. I think we've come to that time. We've come to that time, and so I think for us, our sort of last ask of you is, what do you want to share with the survivors that are in this room tonight? What sort of words do you want to leave them with?
I don't know that I need to leave in any words. I mean, because I was sitting in an adjacent room and I heard you. I could hear the thunder from this room. for everyone who is a survivor, I would love for them to have the video of what was going on in this room today and how important it is to this community. And so I would just say, you know, there are people out in your community who care about your well-being and are invested in your well-being. You are not alone. You never have to think that you are alone, because this community really cares. And it doesn't have to mean that everybody in the community cares, but enough of you care to be here tonight, to make contributions to this organization, to recognize its brilliance of 50 years of action. And that is, to me, the biggest gift to survivors. That's the biggest message. The biggest message will come from you as a collective. And therefore, you know, I can say a few words, but your actions are speaking louder than those words. And the actions of the people here tonight are co-signing on to the words that you're speaking. And that is what makes this a movement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Billy.